teaching the brain to read, strategies for improving fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Eliminating barriers on the road to fluency. Page 68. Students who struggle with fluency are aware that they don't read aloud with the expressiveness and correct pronunciation used by their classmates. They know that they take much longer to read the same amount of text and that they don't comprehend the text as well as their classmates. This stress can further decrease students' successful patterning and processing of what they read. They can become more anxious about reading aloud and, as a result, make more errors or take fewer potential risks by not reading with expression. To permit information to travel effectively through the limbic system to be processed and stored as word memories or decoding skills, it is necessary to create a classroom environment that is supportive and makes students feel safe. In a classroom where diversity is honored and mistakes are recognized as opportunities to learn, students develop the trust that is critical if they are to persevere and take the risk of reading aloud to build fluency. Students need to know that classmates will not laugh at their mistakes and that teachers will judge them onward in progress, not just on outcome. For students who need more self-confidence, it helps to have activities that allow them to recognize their own improvement and to measure their success toward their own goals. A supportive class environment built from the start is one where classmates also acknowledge their peers' progress rather than product. Page 69. Students who see their own charted progress on individual WPM graphs and who hear acknowledgement from classmates and the teacher for their improvement begin to approach oral reading with more confidence and a more positive, optimistic attitude. They appear to develop higher frustration tolerance as they see their read-aloud errors as part of the learning process and not as shameful embarrassments. Students who lack confidence in their oral reading fluency are likely to refuse to read aloud to a group, but some may be willing to practice with supportive peer partners or other adults such as aides and parent classroom helpers. The first task is to help these reluctant students overcome the habits they may have acquired, such as making self-derogatory statements, becoming easily frustrated and defensive, and being vulnerable to perceived peer judgment. When students feel threatened, anxious, embarrassed, or intimidated, especially in situations involving reading, their emotional blockage in the amygdala interferes with the cognition needed to select out the important information. Ornstein and Sobel, 1987. Because emotional comfort is so important to reading, brain-friendly distressing strategies and building a classroom community of non-judgmental, cooperative learners will support struggling readers and enable them to grow in their zones of comfort and proximal development to advance in literacy. Student-centered discussion. As students become more familiar with the vocabulary of the book, especially new words and specialty words that have been previewed and reviewed in vocabulary practice, they can build their fluency with these words if student-centered discussions are framed to include the new words. Student-centered discussions are open-ended so there are no right or wrong answers. Page 70. Prepare students by having volunteers review the content of the story. Select discussion topics inspired by the story, especially aspects of the book that students can connect with their own lives and experiences to engage their attention and motivation to participate. Look at the KWL for want-to-know questions that students suggested themselves. Before some discussions, give students time to look through class, school library, or the internet for information that pertains to the story and connects with their interests. This will give reluctant readers and speakers more pleasure and confidence as they join in the discussion by offering information they own because they found it. The scaffolding for the discussion is to write the important vocabulary words on the board or chart, and when possible, students also refer to their notes from the vocabulary preview. With each response to a discussion question, the students are requested to include one of the vocabulary words in their comment. Example: when we read Black Star, Bright Dawn by Scott Odell, I listed the words we had previewed, such as musher, landscape, horizon, Arctic, and others, and selected questions from the students' want-to-know list that I believed had general appeal and would provide opportunities to use the vocabulary words. Interest-related questions have included: what makes conditions harsh on the Iditarod Trail? How is your dog like and different from Bright Dawn's sled dogs? If you were a musher, what would you be alert for along the trail? To make the class discussion more novel, I had prepared a snowball by putting crushed ice and foil in the shape of a circle and freezing it with added water so it stayed round. I then covered it with white paper and brought it to school in another bag of ice to keep it cold. Page 71. When students wanted to participate in the discussion, they would raise their hands, then the last student who had responded and still held the snowball would gently, as we modeled and practiced, toss it to them. Other times I've used koosh balls for this, had the vocabulary-themed discussions in a circle around a lit candle, or had the speaker wear a hat related to the book's theme. These extra props increase student engagement and may add a flashbulb memory to the vocabulary word and comprehension review while increasing the dopamine pleasure response. Lesson considerations. Some students will gain confidence in using the vocabulary words in their discussion comments if they practice first with supportive peers. Thematic units. The most important question a student in my class should be able to answer at any time, during any lesson, is why is this important enough for me to learn it? My years as a clinical neurologist and research neuroscientist, as well as the current brain imaging scans taken while subjects actually learn new material, continue to support the notion that the person who thinks, learns. That is, truly learns, in the sense that the new information is successfully stored in the brain's long-term neuronal circuitry so it can be accessed and retrieved when needed. One of the best ways I have found for adding incentive for students to build fluency is by incorporating fluency-building activities into cross-curricular themes that are meaningful to each child and integrate with the curriculum. Sample thematic lessons that incorporate fluency-building activities. Page 72. Ethics. In my cross-curricular unit on ethics and ethical dilemmas, I use the big picture first approach by starting with guest speakers on a wide variety of real-world situations where the people struggle with ethical dilemmas: law, religion, medicine, business. For students who need fluency-building confidence, I see if any of their family members or family friends can be included as these class speakers. When suitable, I encourage and help the student prepare to introduce the speaker he or she knows using vocabulary we have previewed about ethics and ethical dilemmas. Challenge and exploration. I have used the cross-curricular theme of challenge and exploration at the start of the school year so students are in a comfort zone and have shared experiences such as the challenge of a new teacher, classroom, books, more homework, new classmates, or other common challenges. Parent and community speakers add to the students' appreciation of the relevance of what they study and again help fluency-challenged students feel more a part of the unit and community if they know the speaker or the organization or if they help me with the planning. During the challenge and exploration theme, we have had speakers with expertise in Columbus, the importance of sugar in the history of the developing world, the earliest maps used by the explorers of the New World, the lives of the poor seamen, the value of historical novels, and early navigational science, as well as a variety of speakers who describe their own experiences either overcoming challenges or related to exploration. For homework, students explore their heritage. Some students can, through parental or grandparent interviews, trace back their heritage to family members who immigrated to the United States seeking improvement or more opportunities in religious, financial, social, or political aspects of their lives. Parents who were immigrants themselves can share their experiences with the class. Pairs of students explore each other's past heritage, in keeping with discovering similarities with why the colonists and subsequent immigrants came to the New World in search of a better life and how those early settlers were similar or different from their own family members with respect to challenges faced. Page 73. Class discussion follows the pair share. Student pairs next share feelings about the challenges they expect in the coming school year. Their partner then introduces them to the class using the information gleaned during a series of guided, information-gathering interviews. Lesson consideration. I provide interest inventory sheets for students to fill out and use as prompts for asking questions and recalling their answers during the peer interviews. The students who need extra time or support can work on these at home with parents or in class with adult assistants. Student pairs have lists of the vocabulary words we are learning that are new and important to our reading in literature and history. Pairs practice responding with encouragement when a partner uses one of the words, as well as making a check next to the word on their list. I circulate and ask students to use one of the words I see checked on their list by speaking it in a sentence to me. If they make pronunciation errors, I repeat their sentence with the correct pronunciation and use the word again as I emphasize the accurate parts of their sentences. By not directly saying, "You are incorrect, here is the right way to do it," I am still giving corrective feedback while supporting student effort through incorporating what they got right into the amended sentence. Paired work is followed by whole class discussions where students have their lists as scaffolding and share their pair-developed ideas about the challenges of the new school year. They are required to include one of the vocabulary words they have practiced. To build fluency, students have time to first write their comments down. They read from their own words after practicing these with their partner to build fluency before reading to the class. The goal is to build reading fluency by having students incorporate vocabulary words into self- and pair-constructed sentences they first practice, then read aloud. Because these have personal and thematic relevance, they are more likely to feel positive about the activity. Practicing with a peer builds confidence and fluency. Page 74. Lesson consideration. When students are fluency challenged, I listen to them practice with their peers and give supportive, corrective feedback until they are able to read their comments fluently without embarrassment. We read a class literature book about challenge that coincides with our historical study of the explorers of the New World and their challenges, such as an easier reading modified version of 2 Years Before the Mast. To prepare for student oral reading, they practice reading sections to partners. Students needing fluency support are given pre-selected sections that they will be reading aloud. They have opportunities to practice rereading their sections at home and with partners. Instead of reading in a circle where it would be obvious when I call on a student to read out of order, I call on students to read sections. Most students are selected randomly, but when I come to the specially marked sections of my book with a student's name noted, I call on that pre-rehearsed student to read his or her section. With some classes I include a discussion about the challenges of reading aloud and ask volunteers to give their answers to the question. The sailors on the ship from our book, The Pilgrim, faced many challenges we have been reading about. Sometimes, just reading aloud in class is a challenge. Who would like to share why it might be challenging for you to read aloud? To show students that they are not isolated in their reading anxiety, I encourage classmates to raise hands if they share the same fear just stated by the volunteer. Independent reading for book report choices is guided for independent skill level. Choice is again a positive motivating factor, and I provide a variety of books pertaining to our theme. I ask students to include oral reading from their books as part of their book reports. The students who need more goal-specific fluency guidance meet with me and show me several choices they have made to read aloud. I guide them to select the passage with achievable challenge, and that is the one they practice at home or with class partners. Page 75. Lesson consideration. I often meet with the students who need the advantages of choice to reduce the negative responses they have developed to oral reading. At these meetings they have first choice of available topics. Sometimes we visit the school library together after I have consulted with our librarian who helps pre-select appropriate books for the students' reading level and interests. Engaging the cooperative and collaborative skills through recreation of the historical events they read about in literature and history texts is another useful way to promote fluent reading practice. This is similar to reader's theater, but because of the student's personal connection to the cross-curricular unit of challenge and exploration, the skits are especially significant to them. Students work in groups I pre-arrange for complementary interests, skills, and fluency to strengthen social and reading support. The goal is for students to practice reading aloud words with connection to text that will build their fluency while their affective filters are not stressed. I give each group a portion of the text to portray in their skit, for example, pages 6 to 14 or the subchapter on the Rhode Island settlement. I give a list of specific points and vocabulary from the section that I want them to include in their skits and an associated passage of text to be read aloud. There is one of these specific points per student. When the students choose the one they will focus on, they have the positive brain benefits of choice that are detailed in a later chapter, including the enhanced dopamine release. Lesson consideration: through modeling and practice, the students have learned and become comfortable with a style of teaching that follows the philosophy that each student has equal opportunities for success at their best level. Students understand that this means that not all student assignments are the same. For the choice system to work, you may need to let the lower fluency students have an early choice and be sure that the passages available include ones they will like and feel comfortable reading. Page 76. Even in lower elementary grades, I have found that when I start the year explaining my philosophy of equal not always meaning the same for every student, I encourage students to conference with me when they think they would benefit from accommodations to suit their ability levels, unique talents, or interests. The group creates the rest of their script, either with formal writing or repeated improvisational practice. Each time they rehearse, they each read their special segments as part of their lines. They use the modeled practice procedures for readers' theater, whereby they give each other positive feedback and then corrective feedback about how to improve inflection or pronunciation to be more dramatic. The scaffolding of skit presentation makes it less embarrassing to read with expression because students have seen and we have discussed the difference between dramatic speech in plays and everyday conversational speech. Audience response to the skit is encouraged after the class is reminded that only positive comments are appropriate in this post-production period because corrections and advice were offered during skit preparation, and now is the time to celebrate success. Just as audience response celebrates successful aspects of the skit presentations, I incorporate celebrations as culminating activities in cross-curricular thematic units. This is not specifically a reading event, but I do incorporate oral reading when possible. For example, after this theme of challenge and exploration, we celebrate with a few hours in a local park doing exploration such as a guided walk with a naturalist who shows us which plants and trees could have been used by early settlers in this region for food, clothes, or building supplies. We often eat food, prepared by student-parent volunteers, that has historical regional relevance and is made from ingredients available to the earliest native residents or settlers. I have included a campfire sometimes in the barbecue pit or simply around a large candle when students read a passage from any of their books or personal writing journals that are meaningful to them. Again, the selected reading is one that I guide specific students to practice before the celebration day. Page 77. Technology for stress-free fluency practice. I've found that children enjoy writing on whiteboards, even more than blackboards. Technology can engage students with programs such as using electronic whiteboards connected to computers where they can use special markers or even their fingers to perform activities to build decoding and fluency at their own pace. Exercises are available such as circling and naming and describing words and sentences or highlighting letter combinations at the beginning and end of words. There is the added benefit of tactile involvement to stimulate multisensory memory networks. Benefits of computer adjuncts to fluency practice include: appropriate challenge. Good computer fluency building programs use assessments and feedback to find the student's ZPD, zone of proximal development, and adjust the challenge levels for individual students. This responsive lesson adaptation can provide exactly the right level of challenge with the appropriate scaffolding to bridge students to the next level of skill. For students of different skill levels, the privacy of computer work minimizes the concern about social embarrassment they may feel about incorrect verbal responses in class. Practice without teachers. After direct instruction and classroom activities, computer practice can give students immediate feedback, correction, practice, and reinforcement with fluency building programs at their instructional level when you are working with other students. Incremental challenge. The best fluency programs work in a similar manner as computer or video games, offering incremental levels of challenge and accommodating students' varied strengths and limitations of their sensory, motor, cognitive, motivational, and affective systems. Experience the program. In selecting computer programs for fluency practice, it is advisable to try the systems yourself. Important considerations are the clarity of the visual display and auditory outputs. Page 78. If the students need to tape record and then listen to their reading, it helps to have variable speed control to slow down playback rate without distorting their recorded voices, especially when they are working on expressiveness. Most systems have website demonstrations available, or your district resource specialists may know of other schools with systems you can try out. Some programs offer speech synthesizers or screen readers that display and read aloud, or through headphones, the text on a computer screen as students follow along verbally. If expressiveness and response to punctuation are goals, the computerized speech should sound realistic and appropriate. Adaptations are also available that respond and adjust for varied backgrounds and exposure to literacy, language, culture, and learning style preferences. For example, the Wiggle Works program includes a read aloud section where children can listen to books read by children with different regional accents. Adaptations and choices that have positive impact on students' affective states can be useful resources for increasing students' response to and participation in the computer program. In addition to fluency building, programs are available to build comprehension and response to reading activities using computer-generated, ability-suited prompts such as leading questions, suggested strategies, and graphic organizer formats. These programs can add assessment potential when students can demonstrate comprehension through input of their recorded reading or verbal responses to computer-generated image prompts relative to the text they have just read. These are recorded so the students can listen to their own responses and re-record if they want to improve. Then you can listen at any time to their recordings for assessment purposes. You have probably recognized many similarities between the activities I use to distress fluency practice and those you use to build student reading skills. That is good news, because now the neuroimaging research is providing support for these strategies and your continued use of them. Page 79. Highly structured reading curriculum programs can consume many classroom hours. Still, with your understanding of how the brain builds fluency best when lessons are RAD, reticular activating system out of stress, threat mode, effective amygdala filter primed to admit knowledge to cognitive centers, and dopamine release in response to pleasure, you can select strategies to help students' brains work at high efficiency to build stress-free fluency.